and 26. It is another dark day in the United States of America, but in the darkness, we have found small pockets of resistance. And with, I think, hope and anger and righteous indignation, we are growing those pockets of resistance from community to community, a web and a network of people who are saying, we have had enough. On Ignition News, we typically cover 5 to 6 stories, what we think are the most important updates for you to be knowledgeable in your community, but also to push back against fascism and to grow. So let's get into it. There still remains in the United States of America only one major story. But through that, we can pull important lines of inspiration and hopefully a path forward. Good morning, everyone. Again, welcome to the Ignition News. We are currently streaming on Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and Substack. So let's get into the news. Yesterday morning, federal agents shot and killed Alex Pretty, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, on a street in Minneapolis. The administration immediately lied about this, calling him a domestic terrorist who tried to, quote, assassinate federal officers. By yesterday evening, however, we have sworn witness testimony filed in a federal court to prove that those claims were false and fake. Hours after the killing, Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz with an extortion offer. Hand over your voter roll, your welfare data, and repeal your sanctuary policies, and maybe, just maybe, ICE will leave your state. And yes, we're going to close it out today acknowledging what is happening in the United States of America. Obviously, we're getting back into the main story yesterday. A lot has changed in just over 24 hours, but what we now know to be very clear was that at 9:05 yesterday morning on 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis, Alex Pretty was shot by what appears to be DHS officers. He was pronounced dead at the scene. This is, of course, the third shooting by federal agents in Minneapolis in 17 days. Of course, you have January 7th, an ICE agent killed Renee Good. The following week, people have forgotten about this already, they shot a Venezuelan man in the leg, and now Pretty. I did not expect that when we started to talk about fascism in the United States of America, that we would be using terms like good, words like good and pretty. These are not the thoughts that I expected we would have. But the White House has thoughts of its own. Stephen Miller called Pretty a, quote, domestic terrorist who tried to assassinate federal law enforcement. Kristi Noem said almost immediately that officers fired, quote, defensive shots, and Greg Bovino claimed Pretty was arriving at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals. That is the narrative from the federal government, and everyone should take note of what the federal government will say about you when they kill you in the street. Except, of course, now we know with just less than 24 hours since we first talked about this yesterday, that all of that is a lie. And we know that because 2 witnesses have provided sworn testimony. Just hours after the killing, the ACLU has filed a lawsuit against Kristi Noem and DHS officials. The first sworn witness is a children's entertainer who specializes in face painting. She was on her way to work when she was stopping to document what was happening with ICE in the streets of Minnesota. She testified she's, quote, been involved in observing in my community because it's so important to document what ICE is doing to my neighbors. And that's right. This is what we talk about. Here is a quote from her sworn testimony. The agents pulled the man to the ground. I didn't see him touch any of them. He wasn't even turned toward them. It didn't look like he was trying to resist, just trying to help the woman up. I didn't see him with a gun. They threw him to the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground, and they just started shooting. They shot him so many times. I didn't know why they shot him. He was only helping. I was 5 feet from him, and they just shot him. She continued, I have read the statement from DHS about what happened, and it is wrong. The man did not approach agents with a gun. He approached them with a camera. He was trying to help a woman get up, and they took him to the ground. The second witness, a 29-year-old physician who saw the shooting from their apartment window, testified before the shooting they could see Pretty yelling at agents, but, quote, did not see him attack the agents or brandish a weapon of any kind. After the shooting, as with Renee Good, the physician tried to render medical aid. ICE agents initially refused to let them through. When they finally allowed it, the doctor found agents standing around Preddy's body, not performing CPR, not checking his pulse, but they were counting the number of bullet wounds in Alex Preddy's body. The physician testified that Preddy had at least 3 wounds in his back, one on his upper left chest and another possible gunshot wound in his neck. The physician checked for a pulse, but there was not a pulse. I want to underscore that Alex Preddy was shot in the back 3 times. If you watch the footage, there is one particular angle that has been stabilized using technology. And what you can clearly see is that an ICE agent or a DHS or Customs and Border Patrol agent, we're not exactly sure, of course, at this time, stands behind Alex as he is being held down by other agents, pulls his gun out, and shoots Alex in the back. It's very clear. The first shot fired was that agent shooting Alex in the back. There's no justifiable situation wherein shooting a man in the back is acceptable. Of course, now we know the narrative coming from the other side. Alex Preddy had a gun. Well, Alex had a legal permit to carry in Minnesota, which does allow open carry. Video, of course, from the scene shows us that he was holding his cell phone, not a weapon. And now multiple angles of that instance prove that one of these agents took his weapon away from him. So let us be clear about what happened. These federal masked agents terrorizing Minnesota pinned a man to the ground, stole his firearm that he was legally allowed to possess and carry, and then shot him in the back on an American street. I want to read a statement from his parents as well, just for the record. The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering, cowardly agents. He has his phone in his right hand, and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman ICE pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed. Alex worked as an ICU nurse at a VA hospital. His colleague, Dr. Dimitri Draconia, a chief of infectious diseases at the VA and a professor at the University of Minnesota, said he wanted to help people. He was super nice and super helpful. He looked after his patients. I am just stunned. This is what fascism looks like on the street level of our country. Welcome to the Ignition News, everybody. It's great to have you on the show. Please consider following us on all of your platforms. TikTok right now, in case you're not aware, I know we have a very small audience on TikTok. TikTok, ByteDance, and CapCut are all experiencing outages today. So for those of you that did find us on TikTok, I appreciate you being here. But it underscores today why it's important for us to be able to broaden our reach and our platform. By going to your favorite podcasting platform, you're going to be able to find all of our news in a different location. But you'll also find exclusive episodes just for Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube podcasts. Obviously, Preddy's death brought thousands of people into the streets. But I can't get over that fact. And what I want to talk about really quickly is the fact that in the United States of America, we've had this exorbitant gun culture for years and years and years. Alex Preddy was legally carrying a firearm, and now the government is weaponizing that firearm that he was legally carrying, that he did not pull out and he did not point at anyone, as justification for murdering him. And what is also rather stunning when you look at the situation is they are going to take that instance. They have already taken that instance, and they have said publicly, someone from the federal government yesterday said, if you have a weapon, a gun, just in your possession, and you approach law enforcement, essentially they are justified in using force against you. The NRA, of course, came out strongly against that and actually demanded an investigation. But think about that for a moment. It's no longer been about everyone's right to own a firearm. It's been about the right people owning firearms. So when a nurse, a VA nurse, VA, for those of you who don't, Veterans Affairs, this was a man who took care of America's veterans. When he legally carries a firearm, I mean, he could take it anywhere he wants, anywhere he's legally allowed to take it in Minnesota, the street, wherever. You saw the video with your own eyes. You saw the multiple angles. You heard the screams on the street. In all of that chaos, what I would want to point out, in all of that chaos, in all of that noise, in all of that trauma, he did not pull or brandish his firearm, not one time. Yet they shot him nonetheless, and they blamed him for simply possessing it. They violated his First Amendment right, then they violated his Second Amendment right. And for everyone that I saw yesterday, I'm going to take a little bit of a break for some commentary here. I saw a lot of people yesterday glamorizing violence, talking about civil war. It's time for civil war. It's time to push back, whatever they said. I can tell you confidently, those people are doing that from the comfort of their couch, which they will never leave, and that those people do not understand how horrible civil conflict can be in any country, let alone the United States of America. This is not something that we want coming to our streets. We need to stop this now. We need to stop the advance of this authoritarian before it gets to that point. This is nothing to glamorize. This is nothing to, oh, it's absurd. And I would just caution you not to get yourself wrapped up in that foolish conversation. Something I talked about yesterday in a different forum. The M1 Abrams tank has a gas turbine engine. It's this big, powerful, massive gas turbine engine. It is such a powerful machine that when people hear it, they often mistake the sound of an M1 Abrams for a jet. They think a jet is coming because, in fact, it uses a gas turbine engine. That kind of sound, by the way, is a terrifying sound that I assure you, you do not want to hear rolling across the streets of the United States of America. Civil conflict, what happened yesterday with Alex in a civil war or civil conflict, that would happen 1,000 times a day. 1,000 times a day. And we might not see but one of them a day if the internet works, by the way, if you're allowed to have a cell phone, if you're even allowed to be in the street. So for these people glamorizing civil conflict or saying, oh, it's time, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're up against. You have no idea what you're glamorizing. Heroes in the United States of America are people like Renee Good, people like Alex Preddy. And I'll take it back one more time. In the middle of all of that chaos and conflict, in the middle of the massive amount of violence being inflicted on him and his community, the fact that those cowardly men were trying to harm a woman, 7 or 8 of these men with their masks, their sunglasses, and their little body armor, going after women, children, terrorizing them, a 5-year-old, in the middle of all of that chaos, being beaten, thrown to the ground. He still didn't use his firearm. He didn't pull it out. What's tragic is, of course, the government lied and said that he did anyways. None of those men are heroes. None of those men are heroes. Heroes do not hide their faces. Heroes do not flee from the scene. By the way, I have never in my life seen a law enforcement individual involved in a shooting, an officer-involved shooting, immediately flee the scene. Someone yesterday correctly pointed out that yes, when there's an officer-involved shooting, it's obviously not appropriate for an officer to investigate their own shooting. But I've never seen an officer of the law flee a scene. They literally ran away. They scattered like cockroaches. That was, of course, before one of them looked like they were giving a high five. This is not normal. And we're going to talk specifically about this. But the thing I would want you to know is we have to stop this now before it escalates. Everyone glamorizing violence and telling you that, oh, there's only one way to stop fascism. You have no idea what happens next in civil conflict. It is brutal. It is horrifying. The things that happen in unregulated civil conflict. You do not want that coming to the streets of the United States of America. Let's move on to the next story. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ignition News. We are broadcasting live, but of course our show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, all those great places. One thing I would want you to know, I'm so grateful for our community. I took a couple extra days, but the Ignition News has actually surpassed Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. we do have a signature podcast called Ignite, which teaches you how to push back against fascism in your community, whether that's at your front door or running for office or protecting your elections. Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise, is a free toolkit that we've developed right here on our sister network, Rebel Radio. Go download what we got 14 episodes of Ignite and 4 bonus episodes completely free. It's my gift for you being part of this community. It's the least I can do to help equip you to protect your own community. Here on Rebel Radio, our sister network, our goal is to build 1,000 leaders in 1,000 different communities. And I'm very proud of the community that we have built and that we continue to build. I'll take a quick break because I just want to recognize everyone in our community. I want to also recognize our moderators who keep our spaces protected. But today is an important day for you to go follow this show somewhere, because today TikTok is broken. All of you that normally find us there, the people that found us on TikTok today, they had to scrounge. They had to like a needle in a haystack. So go find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Go find us on Substack. Don't depend on an app controlled by a billionaire. I mean, they're all technically controlled by a billionaire, but TikTok's getting worse and worse every single day. Let's move on to the next story. Pam Bondi's letter. Of course, hours after Alex Preddy was killed, literally the same day, while his body was still warm and people were gathering at the scene, Attorney General Pam Bondi was typing out a letter to send to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. The letter blamed Tim Walz for the chaos in Minnesota and also accused him of refusing to support, quote, the men and women risking their lives to protect Americans and uphold the rule of law. And it specifically criticized Tim Walz for describing federal law enforcement as Trump's modern-day Gestapo, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for saying, ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Then Pam Bondi, the United States Attorney General, made 3 extortion demands of the sitting governor of the state of Minnesota. Number 1, share Minnesota's records on Medicaid and food and nutrition service programs. Number 2, repeal all sanctuary policies. And number 3, and most alarming, give the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division access to Minnesota's voter rolls to, quote, confirm that Minnesota's voter registration practices comply with federal law. And if they complied, allegedly, with all 3 of those demands, the extortion from Pam Bondi, the most unqualified attorney general in the history of the country, by the way, then the federal government might consider pulling ICE out of Minnesota. Maybe. This is the federal government weaponizing the full tools at its disposal, and specifically Trump's militarized Gestapo, to threaten a duly elected governor, to extort him from handing over information about his citizens, and most notably, voter data. And for those of you who don't know, voter data and voter data, voter registration, elections in the federal system, one of the last remaining sort of firewalls we have is that the state does run and control its own election systems. Now the federal government is showing us what the plan is all along. I said this in a different form again yesterday, but let me be very clear to you. The president of the United States is going to try to steal the election in 2026. And it seems, as his own relative said, that he simply just won't leave. That's what it's looking like right now. And for all of you who say, oh, he's very old, et cetera, his father lived to be 93 years old. He's 79 years old. I'm not banking my American resistance plan on anyone's age. I'm banking my American resistance plan on protecting our elections. And so part of Ignite, Fighting Fascism in Season 2 is going to be teaching you specifically how to protect your election infrastructure, how to get to know the people in your state who are running your elections, how to become an election observer, how to ensure that this information is being safe, how to ensure your information is being safe, and how to get to the streets and protect your elections. We don't have time to waste. The federal government literally said in print yesterday that they are going for the elections. We can't let it happen. In our final story, I actually want to validate something else that I saw in The Atlantic. It's an important article. It's written by someone named Jonathan Rauch. It's a must read. And it's something that I think we have to grapple with. I talked about this in terms of civil conflict. But Roush makes a very compelling and I think final argument. And so, what I would say today, instead of paraphrasing his entire article, is I would say that I agree that we no longer have any chance but to refer to our current state in this country as fascism. After what happened yesterday, after what we can plainly see with our own eyes, we have to recognize that this is no longer normal political reality. Although you, because you follow the Ignition News, I know you already know that. But I don't think we're taking it as seriously as we need to. A couple of things that Roush points out that I think are important to highlight. Number one, the demolition of norms. This has always been the president's approach to governing. Number two, the glorification of violence. Every state uses violence to enforce his laws, Roush says, but liberal states use it reluctantly, whereas fascism embraces it and flaunts it. Yesterday, what we saw in Minnesota was a targeted, violent murder of a protester, just one day after the largest economic boycott in Minnesota history and the largest mass demonstration in the history of the state. Politicized law enforcement is another thing that Roush points out. The president has weaponized the justice system, freeing people, convicted criminals from the bounds of the justice system, and specifically targeting people who he does not like. What I would tell you is that is going to come for you one day. Dehumanization, calling migrants animals, calling protesters domestic terrorists. These are all intentional. Undermining elections. The president has always undermined elections, except for the elections that he wins. Prior to winning the 2024 election, the president was already talking about it being rigged, which is what he did in 2020. Of course, the president constantly attacks the news media. Of course, he's trying to expand the United States territory, Greenland, Venezuela, now Canada, isolating us from the rest of our allies. And the most damning and I think most alarming, this blood and soil nationalism. I mean, the vice president himself used the term blood and soil. White Christian nationalist fascism. Of course, we have masked street thugs. It's like Italy in the 1930s. We have the president's face on banners, 40-foot tall banners on the Department of Labor. And now the complete absolution of truth. No government agency under the executive purview, no government agency is capable of telling the truth. The truth to any government agency under the executive purview is whatever the president says. Of course, we can object about when this happened or at what moment in history or at what degree previous levels of the American government were fascism or authoritarianism or tyranny. But I've lived through a time when I saw my rights increase, enhance, when I saw people who didn't have rights get rights. And I have also lived in a time where I have seen people's rights taken away from them, and increasingly every single day. What alarms me most is I think what people aren't seeing. We can see the attack on immigrants, the attack on anyone who isn't white in this country, but there's a very visible and not discussed attack that is happening at a more vicious, more pernicious rate. And that is the selective targeting of trans and LGBTQIA spaces. This administration is particularly focused on those groups. And the language that the supporters of this administration use against those groups is becoming increasingly dangerous and increasingly violent. We know that we must protect our immigrant communities. We know that we are failing every day to do that to the level that we want, but not enough Americans realize how dangerous their family members are, how dangerous their friends and neighbors are, how absolutely at risk they are if they are in the LGBTQIA space. And I'll say something that might make people uncomfortable. They don't want us to exist. And for all of those people who happen to be in one of those groups who are quote unquote supporters of the administration, They will utilize you and use you until the last moment they find any value of you, and your fate is not promised. Go read the things they are saying about gay people, lesbians, about trans individuals. I've lived at a time when those rights increased, when there were protections afforded to those communities that didn't exist before. I've seen what happened to people who made threats against gay individuals. I saw those protections increase. And what I'm seeing right now is the absolute disillusion of that. And it is very dangerous. And so I'll close out the show tonight and today asking you to do more. Once again, I'm asking you to do more. I know you're tired. I'm tired. We're all tired. But you're going to have to pick up one more thing. In addition to going to the street for your immigrant friends and neighbors, protecting Black and brown people in this country, standing up to fascism, we need to start creating extra protective space for trans individuals, gay individuals, lesbians, queer community. I'm telling you, I see something on the horizon which scares me. I don't use that word often. I don't use the S word often. But that group is at risk in ways that this country is not talking about. And I see things every day that alarm me. I see threats of violence, very specific threats. And I see people encouraging those threats and celebrating those things. I see slurs that are sickening. I see those slurs are rewarded and encouraged. The dehumanization of entire swaths of people who have, as you know, already experienced so much pain and struggle. So I'm asking you to pick up yet another thing, to put yet another thing on your back, and to protect another group of people who need your protection. But if you're in one of those spaces, the last thing I need you to know is to get to you, they will have to come through me. I cannot be clear enough about that. To get to you, they will have to come through me, through my community, and through millions of other Americans who believe that you have the right to exist. I see what is happening in this country. I will hold the line with you. I will hold the line for you. History will judge us for how we respond to this moment. For all of your friends and family putting their head down, now is the time to come out of the shadows before it is too late. One day, everyone who is silent now will say that they were always against this. Do not give them that sunlight. Make them come out now. Do not give them the protection of their ignorance. Make them come out now. Be on record now. And if they can't, you need to cut those people out of your life. Because if you have someone who says that they love you and you are gay or you are an immigrant or you are a liberal, as now the target, I guess, is, and they won't protect you now, imagine what they will do when they see the boot. You are not safe with them in your lives if they will not stand for you now, today, January 25th. You either need to call them out into the light or you need to distance them from your life. Fascism is here now. It is more dangerous than people are willing to admit. But I will stand in the way. I know you will stand in the way as well. But your neighbors need to know that, whether they are an immigrant, whether they are a protester in Minnesota, which, by the way, seems to be everyone in Minnesota now. I don't see broad groups of anti-protest resistance in Minnesota. It's kind of what happens when they start knocking on your door. There are entire groups of people right now in this country who are sitting and thinking to themselves, maybe I can't tell anyone I'm gay. You might not believe me, but that's the truth. We are closer to Tehran than we are to a liberated country. We are. But we resist. That's the show, everybody. It's the 25th of January, 2026. This is the Ignition